was in Victorian England.
Sometimes when sailors met a girl named Mary.
And they would just, they would hang around there, and they said, "This Bim is hanging around, not doing anything. Let's make it mighty."
Share, everybody. Share.
You got it. Lower your volume, everybody. Me especially. We are at 60 subs.
That's very nice.
9 away from that golden number.
I thought sexual references was mine.
My bad. That's not my
No, chicken fucking references is your thing.
What's up, internet world? Right here. Everyone turns their cameras off as soon as we go live. What is this?
I don't know.
What's your favorite gang of rascals? I'm gonna mute you, Cortez, because you have baby sounds coming through.
That's completely okay.
Actually, your favorite 5 rascals are back at it again with our homie, our #1 friend on the planet, our favorite guest thus far, Mr. Landon Curt Noll. How you doing? How's everybody doing?
Yay.
Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on your time zone and latitude. And I hope you folks are doing well. And thank you for inviting me to this little soiree, and let's see what happens.
Thank you so much for coming. I am one of the evening people on the podcast, living on the right side of the pond in a civilized world over here.
It is
Excellent.
world. Whatever.
Look, we're starting with that.
You have bears.
Yeah.
Mean ones.
We also have
elk.
They have healthcare, so if they get mauled by a polar bear, then get
Yes.
for free.
That's why we had to get the socialist medicine, because we all get attacked by polar bears at least 2 times a year. Imagine the fucking healthcare that costs that
The
one.
monsters are just roaming the streets.
Yes, as opposed to the human bears. But people ask you sort of why I say good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Well, it's because we live in a spheric, spheroid-shaped Earth where there are people who it's morning, afternoon, evening. But what is morning, afternoon, and evening? And here's how I do it. If you are in dawn, when you see sort of dawn, twilight, it's now good morning, and it stays a good morning until noon, in which case it's good noon at the noon hour. Now, in case, for example, a British naval thing, the noon was the beginning of the day, not the middle of the day. But that's a nautical thing. Afternoon, of course, is after the noon hour. So if it's between 12 and 13, it's good noon. If it's after 13, it's good afternoon. And that good afternoon stays until you're getting into towards sunset. At sunset, it becomes good evening. And good evening stays until the end of twilight, in case it's good night. So if it's dark, it's night. And when it gets to dawn, it's good morning. And when it gets to the noon hour, it's good noon. And then afternoon, after the noon hour, until sunset. At sunset, it's good evening. Now, this, of course, why I say, depending on your time zone, because we're not on a quote flat Earth. There actually are time zones around the sphere.
What?
And that's hard. and moreover, that sun is latitude dependent. So I have good friends down at the South Pole that I visit on occasion, and they are in a 6-month good night. Well, the sun for them sets in mid-March, and it won't rise until September. So
that's when the vampires
for them,
come.
It's good night. But the people on the other side are in good day. They have the permanent sun. So that's why it depends upon your time zone and latitude. So that's why I say good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on your time zone and latitude.
I've been talking to Shartown, and it's like, oh, it's like 4:00 in the morning, and there's birds chirping. The sun's out. I'm just like, what is wrong with where you live? It's supposed to be dark. But
when
the
I
sun
usually
hasn't really set in like 2 weeks at some points, right?
sure when I usually go to the South Pole, it's 24-hour sun, so it's always a good day, or good good noon depending on when the noon hour is.
I do have a question. So I was doing some research last night on Voyager 1 and Voyager 2.
Yes.
And what is this plasma wall that they found in between our solar system and the Oort cloud?
So what happens here? The sun is streaming particles. Right? We call it the solar wind. The radiation it's radiation induced pressure from the surface. The material that is too energetic to be gravitationally bound to the sun is streaming out, and we could feel the solar wind, going out a long ways. And the Voyager spacecraft are actually far enough out that they're beginning to sense and experience interstellar wind. So it's like you are sailing down on a boat in the Amazon River, and you reach the mouth of the Amazon River, and you're heading. And even at the mouth of the Amazon River, you're even though you're at the Atlantic Ocean, you're being under the flow of the Amazon's fresh water. It's only when you get out into the out into the ocean a bit more that begin to really detect salt water. Right. So think about that. These spacecraft have reached the point where they're under more influence from the solar wind from the rest of the galaxy, the combined wind of the stars, than from our sun. And that one of the things that's working on those amazing devices is a positive particle detector, and it's a little device that has 8 positions that it clicks around. I forget if it's like every 15 seconds or so, and basically it's going click, measuring the wind, click, click, click. It's like a weather vane that's sort of spinning around, detecting the forces of the particles. So one of the very important things that I have done in my career was to find the funding to keep Voyager 1 and Voyager 2 turned on. There was a time back in the late 90s when they thought, well, to save a little bit of money, we'll just end those missions. I mean, it can no longer take pictures, and so they just wanted to turn off those spacecraft. And for want of about, I think it was about $70,000 a year, they were going to basically disable these spacecraft forever, have them permanently turn off, and we would have lost our ability to have that boat out in the Atlantic Ocean, sensing what the ocean of stars is doing, and actually having direct measurements of the magnetic field of our galaxy. We here at the Earth, and even some of our stuff, even like the New Horizons probe that went past Pluto, is not yet to the point where it's beyond the dominant sphere of the magnetic field of our sun or the wind from our sun. So only these 2 Voyager probes that are out there that have found essentially the shock wave where the sun's push, the sun's wind loses out to the combined wind of the rest of our galaxy. And so that's why we say that the Voyager probes are in true interstellar space. New Horizons will get there eventually.
I beg to differ, because I watched this documentary called Star Trek: The Motion Picture, and Voyager 1.
Good dear.
It ain't epic.
Well, that is depicted in the future after the Borg, whatever, gets a hold of it. But until then, in this present day, it's currently out there, and so they are out there ticking away, and in fact, there's a status page that that you can go and see if you want to actually see what the Voyager probe is doing. It will give you a nice little status for the current set here. And so I'm looking at the current set of here, and in fact, it's one of my daily things I check on. Voyager mission status. So if you go to voyager.jpl.nasa.gov/mission/status, I can put that in the in the notes. There's a little chat thing there.
Shartan or Brenna, can you guys drop that link in the chat?
Let me.
Yeah, I believe you can drop it on our Discord as well.
Oh, I could put it in, and let me put it in the Discord. I basically, when I come online, I usually turn off my social media thingies to not be interrupted. But for this thing, if I'm doing the Ben podcast, I go into general. I will put the link there. So, okay, I put that. I put that there. And so you'll see, for example, they have been going for 42 years. Voyager 2 launched a few days after Voyager 1. You can see the distance to Earth. And of course, you could turn off the imperial measurements since we revolted from King George a while ago. You should do it in civilized units of kilometers. So it's 22,300,000 kilometers for Voyager 1 and 19 million, almost 500. We're going to be celebrating the 19,500,000 kilometer mark here pretty soon. So they are 149 times and 123 times the distance of Earth-Sun, respectively, from Earth. And it takes light 17 hours, a bit for 17 hours for Voyager 2, and for 20 hours and 42 minutes for Voyager 1.
Yes.
How many AUs are they out? How many AUs? 15?
For Voyager 1 from Earth, Voyager 1 is 123.6.
Holy shit.
And Voyager 2 is 123.6, and Voyager 1 is 149.3.
Wow. So
AU
add one AU then. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
so
from the sun.
Yeah.
Well, it depends on where it is. From the sun, it's 149.4 for Voyager 2, and 124.4 for Voyager 2, and 149.9 for Voyager 1, because it kind of depends upon where the Earth is with respect to them.
Oh, right.
So one of the
currently Voyager 2.
One of the things they were talking about was that. Go ahead, Landon.
Is running around 15.3 kilometers per second, and Voyager 1 is running at 16.9, almost 17 kilometers per second right now. It's the current velocity with respect to the sun.
But we have forgotten something very, very important, because not everybody was here for your last visit, so we kind of have to introduce you again.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yes, we kind of skipped like 3 beats.
Whoops.
Yes, we kind of jumped right into the weeds, and I just got like a text going like, who the fuck is this guy? Landon, if you don't mind, would you please introduce yourself of the nice people of the internet?
Well, hello, nice people of the internet. I am Landon Curt Noll, your friendly secular astronomer. I am a planetary scientist, a specialty of astronomy that studies planets, and I get to study this planet as well as other planets out there. And deep space probes are one of the ways that we get actual data out of it. We also do observations as well. I'm also do work in mathematical computation, especially a branch called computational number theory, and I also do social security. But here we're sort of focusing on my as an astronomer. I'm an associate, a member of the American Astronomical Society, and I particularly study the inner solar system. So I am a what they call a short-sighted astronomer. I look at things near surfaces of stars, but not too close, right? That places where there's nice, habitable, happy zones.
How many world records?
I've had world records. I've had 8 world records. Thankfully, all of them have been broken, because what you do as mathematical discoveries is you publish and you describe and you teach so that other people can gain from your experience and do even better. And so I have to say all those records have been broken because people have benefited from our experience. Why? Because we benefit from other people's experience. And so I'm happy to say that all those records have been broken by other people doing even better things. So yay.
Very nice.
Anyone here on the Beam podcast ever broken a world record?
I did. Most lies told in a single podcast.
But anyway, so do check out
Yeah.
the Voyager status. It's one of the things I can claim is that I found the vote. I found a person who was willing to put up funds until the program can be permanently funded. And now we have these marvelous things. Now, here's the thing: is that these missions, these probes have only a short lifetime span left. We're guessing we have maybe 5 more years. The reason is that they're powered by a nuclear, what they call a nuclear battery. It's basically a pile of radioactive material that you have things called thermocouples. Thermocouples translate heat into electricity. So the glowing warm radioactive slug is providing heat that these thermocouples turn into electricity. But as you know, radiation is decay, and once an atom is decayed, it's less. It's no longer there. So the active slug is getting less and less radioactive, even though the products, because it decays into a thing with long half-life, it's very slow in its decay. The result is going to be is that because the battery, if you will, is winding down, the voltage inside Voyager the Voyager processor getting smaller and smaller and smaller. And at some point, the Voyager is going to get so weak that the transistors won't be able to transition anymore. It will eventually stop. It'll stop functioning. So it's like your battery in your phone. We're now into the supercritical red zone. You better charge me soon, and we're about ready to get
15 minutes anyway.
Right.
So it's been, what do you understand? It's been going for 40, like Voyager 2 has been going for 42 years, 11 months.
Right.
Voyager 1's been going for 42 years, 10 months and a half.
Mm-hmm.
And so their batteries lasted a long time, and we think we might get 47 years out of it before.
They were only supposed to last for 7 years or so. That's what the estimate was. And I was just going to mention that. So it's kind of funny that you went on to that, because that's exactly what I was going to say, that the batteries are starting to die, as well as because of how long it takes to even transmit information back from that far out. It's almost to the point where it's not working for us anymore to be able to communicate with the satellites.
Yes. So the one-way light takes 20 hours, 42 minutes to come from Voyager 1, which is the farthest craft. Voyager 2 is a little bit closer at 17 hours and 8 minutes. And so we have dishes like in Tidbinbilla tracking station in Australia, these 70-meter diameter dishes with very, very, very efficient amplifiers. I mean, and so we get a very weak signal from, I believe, for example, the thing is transmitting only a few watts of power on its and high gain antenna dish is only a few watts. So it's only have a few watts of power that far out. And so we have to have enormous dishes, knowing where it's pointing at, and established. And it's very, very slow. I mean, we're talking about, I believe, typical transmission rates are somewhere on the order of maybe 100 bits per second, maybe.
Oh God!
It's like I mean, we're talking slow even for dial-up speed. But on that status page, you'll see the instruments that are working and instruments that are turned off. There are things like the imaging science system, the Voyager that took that nice blue dot picture of scanning our family of planets. It's some of the members of the family of the planets around the sun. That was taken a long time ago, and now it doesn't have that much battery power to operate its camera. There's a number of instruments that take too much power because the battery is getting weaker and weaker and weaker. But we are grateful for its service and the imaging. Because, please go ahead.
Radiation, and I was like, this is just a layman's kind of thing that hit in my head. Now we were always talking about like depleted uranium and nuclear waste and all that kind of thing. That's still irradiated at the same time, so we have to bury it in the ground. Now, could we not utilise that depleted uranium to create that heat and create a fuel source such as the Voyager system? Or is that
yes and no. For a good radioisotope, you want to have you're getting it's converting the heat into electricity. Also, by the way, the other thing that those nuclear subs do is to keep the spacecraft somewhat warm. Otherwise, you get down to really, really cryogenic temperatures. So the electronics that are near the radioactive slug are also kept somewhat warm so they can function better. That being said, typically things like uranium, for example, is a very dense metal. It's one of the more denser metals around, and something like uranium that has a half-life, I believe, is it around 3.8 billion years, means that it decays very slowly. So you'd need a lot of uranium to give you a little bit of heat.
Depleted uranium.
Right? Yeah. Now there are other ones that have, there's half-lives in the sub-second, right? The problem, of course, is you want it to last a while, right? So what you want is ideal thing is you have a radioactive half-life that's on the order of tens of years, right? Because the slower the half-life, the more stuff you have to have in order to get the same amount of heat. How many watts of thermal energy can you get out of a decaying thing? Well, if it has a half-life of even thousands of years, which is considered fairly radioactive, you'd need many kilograms of stuff in your spacecraft to be heavy. Now, on the other hand, if you take something like cobalt-60, or you have something that like cesium-138 that might have a half-life of matter, in like 130 days, well, then it's not going to last long. It's going to, every 130 days, it'll be half and half and half and half and half. So you want something out there. So one of the useful things that isotopes is a special isotope of plutonium called plutonium-238. Now, plutonium-238 is not the plutonium that you can use to make things go boom. 238 is, in fact, is a they call it a radioactive poison for runaway nuclear reactions. Right? It readily absorbs neutrons, and so if you have even trace amounts of plutonium-238 in your pile that you're trying to make go boom, let's say you have one of those devices that you're trying to make go boom, it stops the reaction. So in fact, plutonium-38 is an anti-nuclear device isotope. And when we were in the business of making thousands of weapons of mass destruction, and the Soviet Union they were having to rid their plutonium for nuclear devices of 238. But this stuff has a half-life of around 78, 79 years, which is ideal for putting in a spacecraft, right? It is not something that you can make something go boom out of readily. And it's not something that is useful for medicines, right? Typically, if you're doing medicines like cobalt-60 or cesium or technetium, you want something that's reasonably radioactive for cancer therapy. This is something that's kind of in the middle, and so that's one of the reasons why they, in nuclear power, they've extracted out this plutonium-238, this special rare isotope, to boost the efficiency of the remaining material. But that extraction then can be put into these slugs, and keeps the battery going. And so that's one of the reasons why these batteries have lasted so long. But again, after 7-9 years, your output will be cut in half, and it's 42 years. Its output is down by a third, and at some point, its output will be too weak for it to heat up the thermocouples for it to have a voltage to power the electronics, and sadly, the electronics will go silent. Sometime, we're predicting that sometime in the next 5 years, we might start to see electronic failures, and it's becoming, like your cell phone. It's running out of juice, and you're trying to get that last call.
Well, I think what everybody is kind of overlooking, obviously, just fly out there and give it a new battery. Duh. Just
there you
give
go.
it another one.
So I will put into the end podcast
2 years of flying, and they'll still be farther out than we get there.
I would put contest a picture that I actually saw I actually saw the picture this pellet was taken from. and you'll see that it has a half-life again at 80. I score a correction. It's 87.7 years of plutonium-238, and that length of time means it's for a little bit of mass. So you're on Earth, your spacecraft doesn't weigh that much. You can get a lot of power, but it's not so short that it decays fast, but it's not so long you need a huge amount in order to do it. And also, the nice thing is that it's an alpha decay, an alpha emitter. So it emits alpha particles. So it doesn't emit the high energy electrons. It isn't a strong gamma emitter. Alpha particles can be stopped by a tissue paper. They're just helium nuclei that rarely get caught. So
there was two really sort of like up to date stories about space this week. One about the I think it's Iran or something like that, that were sending a mission to Mars, and China also sending up a missile effectively, and everyone's concerned that it looks like a intercontinental ballistic missile, and it looks a bit more dangerous. So, what are your thoughts on those two stories that come out this week?
So, one I guess you're referring to is Japan's
mission to Mars.
Yes, and Japan has I guess a couple of years. Japan also has this return mission. They've had a space probe that went to an asteroid and actually hovered around the asteroid, took lots of pictures, and it actually slowly descended on the surface, basically touched the surface to pick up some dust and carry it with it. So in that bottom of that asteroid that's now put into protected recovery, we actually have bits of this asteroid, and the mission's coming back to Earth, and the idea is that it will re-enter the Earth's atmosphere slowly. It will have a basic protective parachute that'll begin to slowly descend down, and they will try to snag the spacecraft, I believe, in midair before it crashes to the ground, because they want to be able to collect. They want to collect the bits of the actual asteroid that's on the surface collector. Basically, it went down and touched and pulled up chunks of it, so we can get actual samples of that asteroid to see in more detail what it's made of. Japan is also in the news because they have selected as a partner for our return back to the moon. We have a program where we're going to send men and women to the surface of the moon. The current scheduled date is somewhere around 2024. And Japan is an important, a really valuable space partner with this NASA mission. And one of the things that they are doing is building the vehicle, the rover that the astronauts will use to drive around on the surface of the moon. And it's a containment system.
From the chat, it was Japan and Saudi Arabia, or UAE, like a
That's
thingy. There you go. But the vehicle. Go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, so that vehicle is going to be useful. It's we had the Apollo 17 mission. Things had this sort of dune buggy to let them go around, but they had to be there in the spaces. I believe the Japanese vehicle is going to be something where they can enter inside and not have to be in emergency spacesuits, right? That they'll have spacesuits on, but the inside will be able to be more habitable, and it'll have robotic arms to pick up rocks and so forth. So they were able to travel much longer distances on the moon to do rock sampling. It was sad that our Apollo program, only Apollo 17 did they finally decide, let's get an actual geologist on the surface of the moon. Before, and again, I'm not taking away from the importance of the people that did land on the moon, but before they were non-scientists, they were people who were selected for their ability to pilot vehicles and to be adept at their skills of piloting spacecraft.
Daredevils mostly.
and people that could calmly respond to emergency situations and handle the problems as they did. So I don't want to take away from that, but it was unfortunate that it wasn't until Apollo 17 that we sent up an actual geologist. And if you look at the samples, lunar samples we had from the Apollo missions, the vast majority of the interesting samples were a geologist going out there doing what geologists do, and they're picking up interesting rocks rather than just picking up rocks. And so we've learned a lot from that Apollo 17. Apollo 18 was going to be even more extensive geology things where they're going to have drills of the things that they were going to do to go out to some of those interesting rock formations. It was supposed to land in a spot that has some interesting geological features nearby that a rover could get. But Nixon canceled it.
A rock that's interesting.
Well, interesting in terms of if you want to learn about the history of the place.
Progressive guitar licks. Some slap in the bass big time.
Good skill at telling a story. And that's what rocks do. Right? For us planetary scientists, when you see the strata, we see something cut into a roadside or something like that, or we see the strata on the mountains, they're telling us a story. And you can read that story like a book, and some of the interesting pages of those lines will tell you things about maybe the sediments, about an area where a place was a floodplain for a while, or a river basin, or there was a lava flow or something of that order. Those are things that you look for to help the place tell its story.
And strata being?
These layers of rock where you have one material on a slightly different material on top of another material on top of another material. And it could be something like, for example, in sedimentary systems where we have water present, you will have layers of deposits. They might come from floods or tsunamis that might deposit a large layer. It may be that a river wandered and an area depressed, became inland sea, and then was lifted up by fault action. And so you'll see the layers of the critters on there. So, in one of my fondest memories in Antarctica was standing on a rock that had fossilized inside it the ripples in the sand. You could see the sand ripples that basically were crushed by another layer on top of it, preserving the layers in the sand like it was an inland water near a seashore. And you could see in the sand trilobite trails, that the critters that crawled over the bottom of the ocean, and you could see their tails as they skidded along. And given the trilobite age, we dated this rock between 475 and 525 million years ago, when it was laid down as a sediment of sand. This is in Antarctica at an elevation of almost 4,000 meters. So it was a time when Earth's continents were in a collective thing called we call it Pangea, when Antarctica was a tropical paradise, and this was a nice little inland sea. And so this rock told a story of what it was like at that time. In there. Of course, it was a very different experience when I was there, because it's like...
This is all lies. The world was created in 7 days, 68,000 years ago. This is all lies.
And even if it was true...
The earth is flat, people.
And even if it was true, he tells this great story, but you guys already forgot, he's standing on it with his disrespectful toes. Get off of that rock!
Actually, I had 1, 2, 3... 4 layers between my toes and the rock.
Oh my God.
By the way, I left the rock there.
This is the Mona Lisa underneath my boots right now. It is one of the greatest.
I didn't leave that rock there.
Stop
Mr. Dr. Landon Noll.
Yes,
I wanted to ask the
This is where it all
question.
falls apart and becomes the usual bin podcast bullshit.
No, because I am steering it. No, I am steering it with
I'm just fucking annoyed that we've been on for 40 minutes and nobody has asked him a question about aliens yet. I'm annoyed. I'm going to go take
We're not going to go to aliens. We're not going to go to
Let's
aliens.
talk about the Drake equation.
Mr. Dr. Landon Noll. So with everything that you found in Antarctica, as well as the fossilized remains and things that have been frozen for hundreds of thousands of years, Is it a, because the reason I'm asking is because of what the country is going through right now, or the world, or the global pandemic. Is it safe to say that one of the things that the scientists worry about is that while things are starting to melt, that there will be diseases that we have not faced as humanity in recent times that are going to be released, and we won't have anything to fight it with,
like the Roni.
So in the case in Antarctica, the interior, pretty much the surface is a sterile surface, unless humans go there and contaminate with their own stuff. And there's very strict rules. You have to clean up your messes. You're not allowed to make any yellow snow. You're not allowed to make any brown snow, and especially none of the green snow. No green snow. You have to take your bag of Mr. Hanky with you. So when Mr. Hanky comes to visit, you go to a spot where you collect Mr. Hanky, and it looks like a little machine that looks kind of like you crush cans. Basically, you have to squeeze Mr. Hanky a little bit of pellet to squeeze out the water.
Oh.
And then you put the Mr. Hanky in a bag.
Food coming in.
Now, of course, it's cold and dry, right? So it actually doesn't, because the volatiles that come off of Mr. Hanky require higher temperature. So at colder temperature, it doesn't really dry that much. And so you have the little bag of little dried Mr. Hanky pellets you take along. The water is kept in a basin.
And you drink it.
There's a dirty water, and you let that basin evaporate, because it will evaporate because the typically the humidity is around 5%. So the poo comes in the pellets, and the water evaporates into salts, and you take the salts and the pellets with you. You don't leave them there. You don't put them in the ground because they will stay there for extremely long period of time. So you're not allowed to make messes. That being said, the question, I mean, if you focus on the interior is pretty sterile. I mean, I had, for example, in my tent that was kept warm by the solar radiation. I had a fresh tomato that I cut in half that I was eating, and then there was like, we need to go to blah blah blah. We went on this 2-day trip, and I had this half a tomato sitting there on the plate. The outside was obviously a little bit dry, but it came back and it was perfectly fine. There's no mold spores down there. There's no pollen stuff. It stuff lasts a pretty long period of time. So when we found, there was some explorers that died there, and their little hut has had them preserved, and they're sitting there mummified. They'll stay like that for a long period of time. So that being said, there are areas where you have biological activity, and these are these subglacial lakes that are deep beneath the ice, about 4 or 5 kilometers down. For example, one of them, this one is called Lake Vostok. If you look at Vostok, if you look at Vostok Base, they're on top of a set of freshwater lakes that are around, that estimate somewhere around at least 3,000 cubic kilometers of fresh water. So they rival like the Great Lakes of North America. And those lakes,
Great Lakes of North America. It's North America. It's the greatest thing ever. I'm kidding.
North America. We share them with Canada, right? It's a
lakes.
We saw them first.
Canada right there sections from us.
I said North America. We share them.
You only have those lakes because Wayne gave them to you. So shut the fuck up.
You're welcome.
I'm just acknowledging, and that's an interesting question. Of the water that goes in the Great Lakes, how much of that, what percentage comes from Canada and what percentage comes from the United States?
All ours.
I bet you, given the water tables, I bet you that there's more Canadian waters that go into the Great Lakes than American. But that's a guess. I don't
We
know.
pollute them better.
I think you're.
We have Detroit on the Great Lakes.
Well,
Yeah, Motor City. Yeah, right on.
we've worse than that. We have Gary, Indiana.
Yeah.
Oh man, Gary.
And I have to, you have to know that I am well regarded as Gary, Indiana is the worst place I have ever visited on earth. I have been to the capital of North Korea. I have been to Ghanamus, Libya. I've been to the hellholes of various places. Nothing compared, sadly,
Gary
to
Landon, you've never been to Vange, Essex. Trust me.
that is true.
Wayne and I have some friends that love to say, "This is the worst town I have ever been in." Everywhere they go, they're from Southern California. They say that everywhere they go.
Yeah, no, just say
Terrible here.
I'm talking about having been, I think we're at 80 countries around the world and many marvelous places around the world. But Gary was the worst. Now there were nice people there. The place was.
You've been to Antarctica, but have you been beyond the ice wall?
I have stood on the South Pole. In fact,
Oh man.
in my
this is what
freezer.
we're doing for the flat earthers. We're doing this for the flat earthers. You absolute melt.
Okay,
Someone
AJ Styles.
been there.
So in my freezer, this bottle was cored at the South Pole. I went to the South Pole, identified. This is about 2 years ago, and I found the South Pole within a centimeter, so I could put my thumb on it. And then I cored it, and this actually has an ice core from the actual South Pole at the time it was there, because South Pole moves because the Earth is wobbly and wiggly. It moves about 10.2 meters a year, but this has been in my freezer. We had ice containers because we had some material came back, and I kept it in a frozen state, and it's been frozen ever since. And there's a bit of
in my ice trays half the time.
Yeah, I was just like, how upset you think Landon would be if I went to his house and I put that in my fridge, right?
I'm so sorry, but I'm going to say this. If I was ever in his house and he had some very, very fine dark alcohol, I would be so tempted to drink that alcohol with that ice.
Most baller shit ever.
Now, you mention alcohol because in Antarctica, the part of the protocol is to bring the base you arrive at a gift, right? You just don't show up unannounced. You bring a gift. And so we typically, when you go to the South Pole, they have that's Odmundson Scott base there. You arrive with a hostess gift. And so a gift for the host and hostess. And so we typically bring, I brought limoncello, I brought grappa, I brought a nice bourbon, I brought a creme de limoncello, but you bring something that's fine, like a marvelous cherry liqueur, right? And so when you arrive there, you land, part of the pilot radio say, hello, we're so-and-so, we've just landed, we are in no need of assistance, we have full medical food and services. So I know what you're saying. We're not a burden on you. And we have a gift if you so desire. And so one of our best gifts we brought to the South Pole was a box of unfrozen apples and kiwis. Not the people, the fruit, right? Now you say, well, how do unfrozen? Well, we had an esky. That's an ice chest. But the ice chest was meant to keep things warm. Refrigerators in Antarctica keeps things warm, keep things from freezing. And so in that ice chest, we put every 8 hours a hand warmer, right? Those little things that the metal filings. And so every 8 hours, someone's job is to put a hand warmer in there so that ice chest stayed unfrozen. And they got, for the first time in months, crisp apples and kiwis, fresh, unfrozen, right? And that was the best gift we brought them. Even though they also, of course, they brought out their stuff. They make a vodka there, through fractional distillation that is amazing. Of course, we usually bring like a liqueur as well. We have a party. We meet at the South Pole. We have a party. They also make other substances there.
Who would have thought?
They also make other substances there. There's a botanical garden and you are in international zone, so there's no laws, so there's nothing illegal. And there are other substances that we don't talk about that they make there, hybridized from seeds from Maui in 1958, when the first permanent station was established, first human presence at the South Pole was established, was where those seeds came from, and they've been hybridized ever since. And of course, they're merely used for botanical reasons at all. There's nothing. There's no reason to make brown paste or any other sort of thing that doesn't happen.
All right. But Landon, I do have to interrupt you for a second because we also have some motions we have to go through. I'm going to leave the word over to our lovely Brenna. Please go for it.
Well, thank you guys for joining us so far. We are continuing with Dr. Noll for a little bit more times. But before we have to go, we have to continue and talk about our Patreon. So please, we are looking for you to help us continue on doing what we love to do, which is meet up and do this and have wonderful guests like Dr. Landon Noll here for the second time. And if you haven't seen his other video, please go and watch the other video that we did with him. We are Get the link.
It's in our archive, so go and have a little look.
The link.
Come on.
I'm on my way.
All right. And so in order to continue doing this and add in more video topics, we need your help. We need your support. We need your patronage. So please go to patreon.com/thebinpodcast and become a supporter of ours so that we can continue to do great work and inform you.
Outstanding work.
Yes. That's THEBIN.
Sometimes.
THEBIN podcast.
Can we get an air horn in here?
Because it's this way. If you enjoy and like content, you should support it. Right? These people have also lives to have, and so if this is something that you find you want, and you want to encourage it by becoming a Patreon, or even just giving a thumbs up, that also helps. By the way, while you're doing this appeal, I have 2 pieces of toast, of bread. This is bread.
Okay.
And
the party has started, everybody.
So I'm going to take these 2 pieces of toast and I'm going to toast them in a roll toaster.
All right. While we're waiting for that, let's
2 pieces of bread or toast.
You know what it's time for, Brenna?
Okay, so what are we drinking? So, me first, I will say I am drinking the Sunkissed Strawberry Lemonade. It's nice, it's a little sweet, and it's got some bubbly to it. So, that's what I'm drinking.
Brenna, you don't need that. You're sweet enough.
Oh, for Christ's sake.
HR, where are you?
Wayne, laying it on thicker than a glaze of marmalade.
HR already fucking cut my beard off. She can't do nothing to me now.
Sadly, she missed your throat.
Oh, God. Sweeney Todd.
All right. Who's next?
So I'm next. I'm drinking Casta Maestro Amarone della Valpolicella. Which is absolutely fucking amazing, by the way.
Very nice. Thank you. Who's next?
I ordered some Portillo's, which is like Chicago beefs and Chicago style hot dogs. I got a bacon cheeseburger.
They're not real hot dogs and stuff. It's like your pizza, which is not really a pizza thing.
I have taken
What
are
so
you
much
talking about?
disrespect.
Fame.
How
Hot
dare
dogs
you?
or pizza in Chicago?
No, here's what's gonna happen because Shartan has
The
already
sweetest
made,
bastard.
Shartan has already made a
All
commitment.
right, wait. Whatever you're drinking, I'm gonna stop this whole horrible
nothing.
conversation before it gets
No.
worse.
No.
Yes,
No.
yes,
No.
we are done with this. Wayne,
I didn't get to
what
go yet.
are you drinking?
This is bullshit.
Love it. I'm out. I've run out.
What were you drinking?
Reclaiming my time.
Shiraz.
Shiraz. Okay, wonderful.
Yeah.
I'm drinking
Cortez?
the cheese from my cheese fries. That's what I'm drinking today because we do cheese.
Me?
At least you're not having a casserole and call it pizza.
Hang on.
Okay, everybody, we're
Is it my turn now?
continuing with our normal podcast.
I didn't know
So I
yet.
just say what I'm drinking right now.
Okay, what
Yes,
are you
please.
drinking
Mr.
right
Landon?
now?
So right now, although this transition, I have a margarita that was mixed by the Good Food La Fiesta in Mountain View, California. This margarita, as you call it, is a skinny margarita. It's made with it's made with the
Agave?
tequila. No, the tequila that was made was with Frida Kahlo Blanco.
Oh,
And so Frida Kahlo was besides an amazing artist and author, was also a tequila master, and it made for her recipe. And it's made with very, very thin, only a tiny skinny. What's called a skinny that is very little of the simple syrup, and with pineapple. So basically, this is like a pineapple margarita. Now,
Margarita.
when I finish that, I will switch over to the wine Costa Brown 2016 Treehouse Pinot Noir from the Russian River Valley. But that'll be for later. But the toast is now popped out
Oh, here we go.
of the real toaster.
Toast
Right.
and wine. I love
so
it.
Cortez, what are
Yes.
you drinking? And then we'll
Toast.
we'll see the finished toast. What was that?
I am currently drinking the tears of my enemies and all those that have ever doubted me in this life.
Oh god.
It is refreshing. It is refreshing.
God says he's cutting a promo on us.
Okay.
All right.
That was very.
Unsalted butter. That's the next thing going on
Okay, so we got the unsalted butter.
I didn't know we had Tyrion Lannister dropping his promo.
Wow.
I drink
Burn them all.
Holy shit, you wankers.
the Hound.
Gotta use my mid-Atlantic accent. Burn them all.
I love watching
Who the hell?
Wayne's face.
Mid-Atlantic.
I love it.
Mid-Atlantic.
I love it.
No such thing as a mid-Atlantic. No.
It's a Hollywood created dialect.
Just
No one lives in the Mid-Atlantic. They found that out in the Titanic. Nobody lives there.
Jack and Rose do.
No, fucking Iceland's in the middle of a fucking Atlantic, you fucking answer.
Did you
Jack-
say
Jack's
Iceland?
still floating about on his door.
Does not sound like a very pleasurable place for people who depend on melanin to survive. Which
So-
means we need the sun.
No, but if you really want to know, right? So
Iceland.
yeah, Icelandic is the weirdest language of all. So just to say please in Icelandic, and I'm gonna butcher this. So if you're Icelandic and you want to correct me,
We have a lot of
please give
Icelandic,
us.
a lot of fans in Iceland.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
thank you. No, so
He's a hotspot.
so please in Icelandic is vinsamlegast.
You have to hold it that long?
Been some legas.
Yeah. Excuse me is fyrirgefú.
Bless you.
Oh, and your welcome is du är välkommen.
Does
Or
Annabelle
gerdu så väl.
I can't let Annabelle in this house, man. We don't do
Parallel
that.
park the van. No, we good. I gotta drive.
I told Annabelle it was over.
I'm actually,
So
I'm actually, oh, go ahead.
There is a mid-Atlantic language, but it's absolutely fucking weird.
It doesn't sound like a weird British.
Yeah. So-
Hold on 1 second.
So understand, I've now I buttered the toast, right? And the toast is still warm enough to the butter melted, right? So I got a buttered toast. And now we've decided that this time we're going to go with a classic Marmite.
All right.
Which is horrible.
That's a matter
horrible.
of opinion.
Yeah.
Yeah, my opinion matters, so
Oh,
fuck you.
Here we go.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't matter.
Jonathan, if I wanted your opinion, I'd tell you it. All right?
That's the way to do it.
Interestingly enough, there is a guy whose YouTube channel I've been following for a few years. He is a polyglot. He speaks fluently, I think about 16 or 20 something languages. He'd be fun to have on, so I'm working on that.
I tried polyglottony too, but I lost track of all the people that I was talking to. It just didn't work out. Wait. That's not the right word.
No, see, you talking about polygamy.
Nope, carry on.
You're talking about a guy who's got multiple wives.
I only been to
No,
Utah.
I haven't.
Polyglot. No, I got some pills from the doctor. Took care of that right away.
Like
Allegedly.
Yeah, it gives you a little
Awesome.
topical cream,
Allegedly.
a balm you put on there. Get all them.
So in conclusion, everybody go to patreon.com/the bin podcast so
Balm
we
is
can
expensive.
continue doing these wonderful conversations.
the balm.
Can we please start talking about aliens now? I want to talk about aliens.
I know. I
So
got
you've
one.
heard-
I got one. I got one.
So here we have the Marmite on toast, right?
Get
We got a
hold.
little bit of spread there.
Little higher.
I like it.
Where did that come from?
I like it a little bit. I like a little bit thicker than most people, but
I like
It's
it
a
thick
little-
too, bro.
Gotta go
You
higher.
feel
Landon.
me?
A little higher. We can't see it.
All right,
Oh,
there we go.
Oh, that looks awful.
It's delicious. It's delicious.
Good.
No, but
so I just say it came from this jar here. Here's the classic Marmite jar, right? You can see inside. It's a fairly thick paste, right?
Oh wow.
Right. This is what the classic Marmite jar is. Now this is opposed to the Australian version, which has they have a Vegemite, right? But they also have
Heard of Vegemite?
Aussie Mite.
It's
They
got
also
it in on
have
it.
a Mighty Mite,
Oh, that's just.
and they
poisonous.
have I think a Promite, which is one of my favorite of the set.
What
But we're doing the classic Marmite because
I just want to tell the people who haven't had Marmite how terrible this is. So this is from Wikipedia. I am not making this up. All right.
Hang on a minute. From Wikipedia, and you're not making it up.
Somebody did.
There's an oxymoron.
Somebody else did. Somebody else made it up. It's not me. All right. But Marmite is a food spread made from yeast extract invented by German scientist Justus von Liebig and originally made in the United Kingdom. It is a byproduct of beer brewing and is produced by Dutch-British company Unilever.
Unilever. That's right.
Is that safe to eat?
Yes, the bollocks, mate.
It's absolutely fucking horrible. It's
now
So,
that was added.
Okay,
That was an
right.
accurate description, except for the last part. So here is the toast.
Rest in peace, Landon.
I'm gonna do this right as an
It was,
exclusive.
you have been to Antarctica. You've been in, below zero weather, and now this is what you're going to kill yourself with. I really just
What's that? Hold up a
like,
minute, right?
no, but is this really the hill you want to die on, mate?
Jonathan.
Sorry. Yeah.
Stop, right. I'm going to do a Patreon exclusive when Jartan comes over here. I'm going to do a challenge where Jartan has to eat 4 pieces of Marmite in flavoured toast. And let's just film that little man squirm.
Yeah.
It's going to happen, mate.
And for,
Yep.
and for the other side,
But
of the
there's
channel-
only one way that you can. That if
So-
you go to patreon.com/the bin podcast and become patrons, that will happen.
That is a Patreon thing.
That
Mr. Landon-
will happen.
Wait. Cortez, hold on. That's not fair to Shartan. So what we need to do is we need to hold on.
No, wait. There's a counter challenge, Mike.
Yeah, we got to get something for Wayne to eat /
Yes. So I'm bringing you some really nice Norwegian foods for you.
Ah,
The
yes.
fish.
Yes.
The shark. The shark.
Soda fish, please.
So I'm bringing.
Look at Wayne's face.
I'm bringing you some Norwegian delicacies that you don't even have to finish either one of them. I'm going to bring you 4 of them because it's 4 slices of toast I have to eat. I'm going to bring you 4 different dishes that are very common in Norway. You have to taste them all and you have to swallow it. For every item,
that will not be filmed.
for every item you can get down, like every item that you can actually get down your throat, I will eat a piece of Marmite toast.
How about this? You guys both have your 4 attempts, and then if anybody backs out and doesn't do one, you have to eat all of them.
Oh yeah.
The loser
Challenge
has to,
accepted.
The loser
Challenge
has to eat the
accepted.
other one. Oh God. what is
Challenge
that?
accepted.
Okay, but this only happens if we have enough Patreon patrons in order to do this.
I'll put the
No.
goal up.
I booked my flights. I'm flying to London the 6th or the 7th. I can't really remember. I'm going over there. We are going to have a night at Wayne's local pub.
Awesome.
So this is happening on Saturday, August 8th. This will only be available if you go to patreon.com/thebinpodcast and sign up for at least, let's say, the $5 tier. We're going to release this live.
And Scott from 5 will be there.
Oh
Yes.
Let's have him as a judge. He'll be the judge.
For the
Mr.
record, I've had
Doctor.
that Norwegian delicacy. In Norway, there were some folks who wanted to see me try it, and of course, I made them say, "Well, get the real stuff," because there apparently is their ordinary stuff, and it's like the primo stuff. I got what was the primo stuff, and for the record, I did consume it. I did not gag, and as they were hoping to see me do that. Now, I don't appreciate fish that shout, and this Norwegian former fish thing shouted. I mean, it was a loud, aggressive shout. That being said, so if you don't like fishy taste, this is like a fish on a megaphone. But
It's the Shartan of fish.
It was. I was told because they said, "Well, no, let's," because I said I don't want you to impugn your national dish with just something that's base, right? I want something that you consider to be good, and so I got. I tried.
But Landon, I have to say, like the things that I'm going to bring Wayne is things that I really like eating. It's things that I really like.
Brexit.
Yeah, and I will say, I would. So if I were to introduce someone, I would introduce them to Promite, because Promite is not as salty as Marmite. It is a smoother flavor. It is, and again, if it's done, if you put it on to toast thin or nice buttered toast, it's really nice. It's a really nice sort of savory flavor added to it. If you don't put it on thick. Now I put it on thick. I mean, I have, you can see I did not spare my Marmite because I didn't want to make it seem as if I was squeamish about Marmite.
No one's judging you, man.
I am. No.
You're amongst friends.
Okay, so this is what I wanted
while we're
to.
talking about eating things, I did have some more questions.
No, I've been waiting. My question.
Go on.
This is a good one. Eclipses. I really wanted to talk about eclipses on the first go round, but now we can really bask in the view. Have any, like by show of hands, has anybody seen an eclipse? Oh, good. So everyone.
Have you seen a total solar eclipse? Not the foreplay of the partial stuff. I know about the total.
No, I've just had the balls tickling one.
Brenna.
It is.
What?
It is.
Brendan knows our wheelhouse. Come on.
Total solar eclipses are very, 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 very special experiences.
Yes.
How many?
Yes,
so,
sir.
so, Mike, you've seen a total eclipse?
Yes. I went to.
Tell me about it.
I went and saw the total solar. A little bit south of St. Louis. What was that? 3 years ago? 4 years ago now? God, how long ago was that? The last one that went across the U.S.
Anyways, so that was the August 21st, 2017 eclipse.
Oh God, that was time flies when you're stuck in quarantine.
Yeah.
Sure.
That was
Delivering paces.
probably the coolest thing I've ever seen with my own two eyeballs.
So tell me, what is it? I mean, because you expected something, but what is it? What was unexpected?
It got very cold.
Mhm.
And it got dark to the point that the streetlights, their little sensor kicked, and then they turned on, which was also very strange. And then all the birds stopped chirping, all the June bugs stopped. The dogs started barking for a second, and then they all stopped. And then we looked up, and then there was the totality, and we're just like, what? And of course, there was a bunch of hillbillies, so they started clapping like morons.
But you know, you're seeing a sunset and a twilight in the middle of the day. That's the thing, is you're not seeing. You're used to seeing the sunset on the horizon, but it turns out that it takes about the same amount of time to go from full daylight to that twilight. But when totality hits, on the other hand, it's a sudden drop of maybe the light levels drop when that shadow reaches you like a 500,000 fold. When they basically turn the dimmer and go down and there, but you could see the shadow of the moon coming down through the Earth's atmosphere. You see the shadow rushing at you at almost Mach 2. And when the shadow reaches you, the moon is completely covered the sun, and then you can look straight up at it with your naked eye, with the telescopes, and you can see the sun's corona.
That was very cool.
And as Mike had said, you have this beam of cold. The shadow is nighttime, and so the wind before the eclipse is coming in the direction of the shadow, because the shadow is this cold beam, right? Because the sun's not shining on him, and so the cool air sinks down, hits the ground, and rushes away from it. So the wind starts coming from the direction of the shadow as this sort of dark line gets bigger and bigger and bigger as it comes towards you, and when it finally comes upon you, the wind stops, because the wind is, you get this cold wind that's descending on you from above. And of course, the birds have seen this hour span between when the sun was fully illuminated to the partial eclipses. And so the birds get to the point where it gets dark, and so the daytime birds go and nest, nighttime birds come out, the flowers close, everything kind of goes into this night cycle. But totality lasts only for a brief minute. I mean, the longest eclipse I've been in, what Anna we talk, was 7 minutes. Usual ones are maybe 2 to 3 minutes is kind of typical. So that period of darkness is there. But while you're inside that calm, because you have the wind coming as the shadow comes, while you're inside this totality, right, you see the glow of the corona, or the sun's gases coming off of it, that you normally can't see because the Earth's atmosphere blocks the light and spreads it out. When the moon's covering the sun, you can see the faint corona and the streams coming off. You can see prominences erupting off the side of the sun. But when you look around you, you can see out to the horizon where it's daylight. So you know how it was with sunset, as it gets towards the twilight, you can see, well, I got a sunset area there. It's kind of light over there and dark over there. Well, inside the shadow, you have a 360-degree sunset. You can look all around and you see going from nighttime down to daytime. You can see, because the shadow is not very wide. It may be only like 100 kilometers wide or even less if it's a short eclipse. So you can see off beyond it, you can see daylight at the bottom. So you have this blend between nighttime going down daylight time, but it's 360 degrees. It's all the way around you. It's 360 degree sunset. The ground is bathed in this sort of this soft, pale blue light because of the colors of the corona and the Rayleigh scattering of the atmosphere. But with the binoculars in particular, you can see incredible details because the sun's magnetic field is causing this plasma, that solar wind, the same solar wind we were talking about with the Voyager spacecraft at the beginning. You can see that solar wind streaming off the sun. You can actually see the prominences starting to rise up out of on the edge of the sun, rising up these eruptions, these sort of solar volcanic eruptions in real time coming off the sun. You can see brighter stars. Right? If you want to take, you can see, or you can see even planets like Venus or Sirius or whatever, there's in the sky. You can see a couple of stars around there. But you don't want to, because you can see those stars at nighttime. You want to concentrate on things like what's happening. How do you feel? Ants that only come out at night start to show up. The nighttime critters start to come out. Particularly if you see eclipses in Africa, where you see the wildlife change, do the shift change. The daytime animals go into thickets to protection. The nighttime predators come out to start to hunt. The problem, of course, is that only lasts for a couple of minutes. And the result is that when you get the first, so if you pay attention beforehand, let's say like the birds, you might see that the daytime birds start nesting 15 minutes before the eclipse comes total. And the nighttime birds come out about 5 minutes before the eclipse comes total. It's dark enough that they break out. But it takes the nighttime birds about 30 minutes to sit there and say, something's wrong. It's getting light again. It's getting warmer again. It takes them even longer to figure out, maybe I should be out, right? But the problem, of course, is that these, particularly the grazing animals like zebras, gazelles, deeks, the paulas, when it gets cold and dark, they know they have to go into those thorn thickets to not be eaten by lions and leopards and cheetahs and so forth. So they burrow into their little cubby holes, and they go to sleep. They sleep for 8 hours, and they wake up. They wake up jet lagged. So you have these zebras and paulas and so forth that wake up, and it's dark, right? They've gone. They'll go back to sleep, but after about 10 hours, they can't. I mean, they're awake again. They got to do something, but they come out and the place is dark, and they have no idea what's going on. And you could walk up. I could walk up to zebras and wave at them again at night, because now you've had the total eclipse during the daytime. They've gone to sleep. They've gone their sleep cycle. They come up, and now they're jet lagged, and they're waking up at like 3 a.m. And they're standing around just like, what's going on? Why isn't it light? What's going on? And they can't see you.
I think the sun's broken.
and the lions and the leopards and the cheetahs go on a feeding binge. And they just start.
Does this explain?
No. Nothing explains me. I'm a fucking anomaly, and that's why I want to talk about aliens.
But the carnivores go on a feeding frenzy, and they eat as much as they can. And you see basically these lions lying on their back, their stomach, the stomachs are bulging because they've just had, it's like their Thanksgiving dinner, and they just can't eat anymore, right? because you had all along this path of maybe 100 kilometers are these jet lagged walking meals that are then just they to consume as much as they can. And now outside of it, they didn't see totality. They didn't go into this spot, but you have this jet lagged bags of meat that the carnivores descend on, and it's quite a thing at that night to hear the carnivores just going to town with all this stuff standing around, like what's going on and being eaten. But that's an example of things you can pay attention to, the effect of stuff. Every culture, you talk about clapping. Every culture has their kind of way they express surprise. Because even as a scientist, when the sun goes total, and that thin crescent gets thinner, the shadow rushes on you, and then someone takes the brightness of light and goes down, and the darkness descends, and it seems like the sun shoots out these gases and so forth, and your reptilian brain just goes to mush, right? Even I have seen 17 total solar eclipses. I've had over 40 minutes of totality experience, and every time my brain just goes, and so I build into my total eclipse experience about 20 seconds of just like being totally blown away. Yeah. But I try to then listen to the local people, what they do, how they express themselves. You mentioned hillbillies clap. Zulus have this high-pitched chortle. Hawaiians have this hooting. Turks have this whistle that they do. The Tuareg have this chanting thing they do. Again, it's what does a culture do when you're just impressed and you're just amazed? How do you say wow, or so forth, or woohoo, or whether that's you see the culture come out and you see how they respond to something that's just extraordinary, and that's a wonderful thing to see. So that's why you want to see the eclipse with people in the local region, because they have external things. And of course, after the eclipse, everyone's exuberant, and you then have this giant party. I mean, Australia had some amazing, and understand Australia coming up in the 2020s and 2030s they have 5 total solar eclipses and 2 annular ones coming up, because they're going to be lucky of stuff. So now, Australians out in the bush.
No, but we do have to wrap the main show up. About
sorry.
We are at
before we do, Jartan.
Yes, yeah, of course. Go ahead.
Would you say that it would still be appropriate in these times of solar eclipses and natural phenomena for us to sacrifice one person for the sun to come back?
I think it's going to come back on its own. If we don't, 2020, if I'm allowed to go, I'll be west of Pitcairn Island. Look, tell me now, Marquesas. Look for Marquesas. Marquesas is halfway between Hawaii and Easter Island. Marquesas Islands. I'll be west of there. Actually, no, I'm going to be east. That path is, correction, it's east of the Marquesas Islands. And then 2021, December 4th, is going to be a total solar eclipse in Antarctica. The expedition going down to Union Glacier. If you want to go down and on the ice, I'm not talking about a boat seeing icebergs and penguins on the shore.
With them, Mike.
Interior, and you can join us at Union Glacier to see a total solar eclipse in Antarctica, and then we'll have there'll be an expedition going out to Weddell Sea to see a penguin rookery. We'll go over to Vincent Massey at the base of the highest mountain, and we'll go to the South Pole.
And if everybody just goes to patreon.com/thebin podcast, we could probably afford a half a ticket. No, but like,
I say that's join us, right?
Yeah. So, but here's the deal. What we're going to do now, everybody gets a question for
a quick question, quick answer.
A quick question, quick answer, and we're going to wrap this up. So we'll start with Mikey.
I just had my last question, so you guys go ahead.
Good. So Mikey, I hope that was that a usual thing. Mikey, next podcast, let's actually take people through a total solar eclipse.
Yeah, I'll get
experience.
Some clips and stuff together.
I'll just briefly mention that before I see an eclipse, I practice viewing it. I practice watching it, because you have to be there in the moment. There's no replay. There's no rewind. Those precious seconds, you have to pay attention to what's going on and absorb as much as you can going on. So
I also think
we'll do a practice run.
Yeah, I also think, like Professor, that having somebody you around to explain what's going on would be very beneficial for everybody around, because a lot of what you said was something that I wouldn't pay attention to. So thank you for that. Brenna, let's go over to you.
Yes, I noticed the T-shirt that you were wearing about the Lick Observatory. I've been there.
The lick.
The
Excellent.
Lick Observatory.
Mount Hamilton.
Oh, you've been there.
James Lick is buried there.
I've been there.
A man who made his fortune importing chocolate into the United States.
Licking chocolate.
Yeah, James Lick was a weird guy. I just wanted to comment.
We can all relate.
Please.
Licking chocolate? That's what you like?
What?
It was the African bush again, mate.
No, Lick was
Brenna,
the
Brenna, go ahead.
yeah, no, I just wanted to comment on it that I loved the Lick Observatory. It was a great place. But I just want to comment on your shirt and
I say it's a
and none of these guys I don't think have realized that I actually studied astrophysics in Santa Cruz. I was a member of the Society of Physics Students.
Absolutely. UC Santa Cruz has a real astronomy department, not a subsection of physics. They have a real astronomy department. They are the ones that actually manage Lick Observatory. And they do a marvelous job. I am so grateful that we found funding to keep the observatory going. It's not going to be closed. And I really value my time at the 36-inch Lick refractor, the great refractor, the largest refractor that actually is operating right now. And to see Saturn, when it's ring crossing, when it's edge on, to see Saturn in the Lick refractor is just an extraordinary experience. Yes. All right. So, yay, Lick.
Wait. One last question.
I don't really have a question. I've just really probably enjoyed having Landon back on.
You've had yours.
That was not a question.
Well, tell me what question.
All right.
I do want to talk about the is the word volatile? Whatever that V word. No, the validity or whatever of the water or the substance that is being shot off on the moons of both Saturn and Jupiter. I do want to talk about that next time, but if that's something that we could,
I think we could talk specifically about Europa and Enceladus, the waters escaping from the surface and the missions there to explore it, and the very, if I have to say, possible spaces where we'd find life outside of this planet. Europa and Enceladus are on the top of my list for outside.
And now you're fucking talking about aliens. Now that we're wrapping up. Now you're getting into the aliens shit.
You knew I was going to. I did not want to interrupt the solar eclipse talk because I love that.
It's not confirmed, but that's why we're going there to actually see whether this stuff is there. And we'll talk next time about
the missions that I'm talking about.
Yes, absolutely. I've been lobbying for them, participation, that sort of stuff. So those are very important things that we will learn.
So my question is a very.
And he's trying to get off the ground, and I'm with him on this.
So my question is a very easy yes or no question. So if I'm trying to build a private lunar eclipse module rocket,
what? Oh, the intro
can you help me?
No.
Yes, I mean, one of the things.
No, we cannot do that.
One of the statements.
Don't respond to that.
The item is. Yeah, here's this. I wouldn't go myself, but one of the things I've been, when Google tries to hire me, I say the price of you hiring me is that you fund placing a telescope on the surface of the moon. That's one of the things I want to do is to place an optical robotic telescope on the surface of the moon. So if you get yourself there, just make sure that you have ability to plop a telescope outside of your spacecraft and don't smack into the surface really hard.
I just need a schematics for the rocket, mate. Like, can you help me find a place to buy one?
Everyone, and you can vote on the worst question of the day, whether it was mine on sacrificing people for the sun to come back, or this man talking about his hypothetical moon project. He's trying to
I'll tell you, why
Please vote.
don't we sacrifice Yardan and make a fucking space rocket to sort out a space telescope on the moon? There we go.
I don't
Everyone.
go anywhere.
All right.
Next time, Mikey, we'll do the real time eclipse run through as if we had to see a total eclipse of what we would do, and we'll talk about Enceladus and Europa. And
if you want to see that, you have to go to patreon.com/thebandpodcast, and it will be on the Patreon exclusive. It only costs you $1, and you will get access to a lot of bonus content.
KGBIN podcast.
Yes.
Please participate.
And we are
Now,
and our move to ACAS is just finished. We have scheduled. We are going to be posting over the next 2 weeks, every other day, new episodes on
Jesus, I already started using
Apple
longest outro
Podcast.
ever. Let me switch back over.
Yeah.
Apple Podcast, on Spotify. We are going to dump all our exclusive for our patrons only. It's going to be available for you by tomorrow. I hope you had a great show with us. Thank you, Dr. Landon, for being here with us. From Mikey, from Brenna, from Wayne, from Cortez, and of course me, Shardell. Thank you for listening, and have a good night.
Ciao.
Bye.